there's more people than I thought. When you sit up in front, you never know who's coming in the back. This is great. Well, this month's theme is finding comfort, and the affirmation is the Christ present guides, strengthens, and comforts me. And at first that theme didn't really resonate with me. I don't feel I have a big need to be comforted. If I need comfort, I always can have a cuddle with my little dog. But I don't feel that I need somebody saying, there, everything's going to be okay. You know, it's all okay. I know that all is in divine order. When something uncomfortable is happening, when I'm feeling uncomfortable, I know it's something I need to look at. But I also know that Christ's presence is always within me, guiding me and strengthening me. And I guess that does give me a kind of a comfort. Although sometimes I feel like I'm lost in the fog and I can't find my way. Do you ever feel that way? This is a picture of the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco. How many of you have been in San Francisco in the summer? In the summer. Yeah, well, you know what tourists, you know what they call tourists in the summer. Everybody has goosebumps because we don't realize how chilly it gets in the summer because the ocean produces so much fog and it's pulled inland by the heat in the valley once the sun goes down. And so, but usually around 5:30, if you've been there and seen this gray wall that is coming closer and closer and closer to you. You don't know what it is at first, but it's the fog. It's about 7 stories high. Now, it's really interesting because did you know that according to the National Bureau of Standards, fog, dense fog, that is this high, about 7 stories high, and that covers about 10 blocks, if it's all condensed down from fog into water, it won't be more than a glass of water. Isn't that amazing? Bob, you said you were going to bring your fog machine. You didn't bring it. But when
I did.
Oh, you did? Oh, he's allergic to it. Yeah. Because when you put the water in to make fog, how much water do you actually use? Probably very little to make this immense amount of fog. It's really amazing. But isn't it so true of our lives and the fog that we get into sometimes? If the things people worry about most of the time were reduced in size, it probably wouldn't be any more than a metaphysical cup. So how often do we feel that we're living in a fog, that we can't see where we are, and we don't know, we have this like fog, we don't know where we're going, we don't know what we're supposed to be doing. It's like we seem sometimes just totally confused because we can find so much to worry about, can't we? Boy, oh boy, these past few weeks, I had a major computer challenge, to say the least. And then I had family stuff, like every time, I had several ministries that were asking me for help and advice. I have had multiple long Zoom calls with people across the country, and I've been coming down with a cold. And I just thought, I felt like I had the weight of the world in my head. And it was just like all foggy. Because that's where it is, isn't it? It's all in our head. It's not in our hearts. It's not in our spirit. It's in our human body. It's at that human level where the ego can blow things up out of all proportion and take a little cup and make this huge big cloud of fog. It's just amazing. But I needed to just stop and listen. Listen to that foghorn, the spiritual foghorn that was telling me that I was heading for dangerous rocks. But not just listen half-heartedly. There's a story about a team leader who was having a meeting and she wanted to establish team spirit. And this woman, one of the people, they were all sitting around a table. Oh, I think I have a slide, yeah. So they were all sitting there, and this one woman kept shuffling papers and texting and frowning, and it was very distracting. After a while, the team leader just stopped. And everybody else kind of looked at the person. And this person suddenly kind of looked up kind of sheepishly. Oh. And she put away her papers. And then everything kind of went back to normal, and she could focus on what they were listening to. She concentrated. For her, the foghorn was silence. It usually is for me too. It's just being still. Psalm 46 says, "Be still and know that I am God." To hear what God is saying demands that stillness, that listening of a special kind. And that's the hard part, isn't it? Being totally still and listening to one voice and one voice only. But when we do, we hear messages we haven't heard for a long time. That Christ's presence is whispering to us, guiding us, strengthening us, which comforts us. Have you ever asked yourself, why is God so silent? Why can't I hear it better? The answer may be that during those loud, long silences, it may be God's way of waiting for us to stop shuffling our papers. Stop texting. Pay attention. Pay attention. Because life demands answers, and to get effective solutions, it requires a certain amount of concentrated listening. Hearing is not listening. Hearing is a mechanical thing that we do, that our body does. It's sending the vibrations, but it's that listening. You know, when my boys were growing up, I was convinced that they had a hearing problem. I would stand in front of the television set. I would stand in front of the television set and block them, and they'd be sitting there, "Mom, we can't hear, what's going on?" Well, of course, you know, it's like, anybody have kids that they thought I had hearing problems? Yeah. Oh yeah. I actually had one of them tested. I was so convinced he had a hearing. Yeah. Because I would go up to them and I would be where they couldn't see me, and I'd say, "Do you want some candy?" And he wouldn't even be looking at me. Wouldn't answer. And I thought, whoa, that's serious, not hearing problem. But no, there was nothing wrong with him. But so concentrated listening is listening of a special kind. It's so intent on receiving the message that it insists on silence from all other sources. Once we take the time to just sit and listen, then we can hear the fog clearing. Because the fog doesn't stay all day in San Francisco, does it? It doesn't leave till about 10 o'clock in the morning. Nicely timed for commutes, you know, comes in at 5:30, leaves after 10, you know. Commuting is a mess in San Francisco. And also if you're trying to fly in, you know, because they close one runway if there's any fog or rain or anything. So, but as soon as the sun warms the air, the ocean, the currents reverse and comes down now from the warm valley and pushes the fog out, dissipates the fog for the day until again comes back in at night. But it's just like God's love shining through us, lifting that fog of doubt, isn't it? I love that. And our prayer time, I can't remember my slides. Oh yes, there it is. I love this. I love when I see the sunlight shining through the clouds. It just reminds me, yes, that's my fog that I've been living in, and the sun is shining through. Okay, so you may say, yeah, okay, fine. I know I've got to take time and really listen, but how do I know that the voice I'm listening to is the voice of the Christ presence in me? How do I know it? How do I distinguish it from all the other voices that carry on conversations in me? You know, those voices of the inherited belief systems, the cultural, societal norms that tell me I should. Should, that's one word we're supposed to get rid of. Never should on yourself, okay? And that these voices created out of my fears and anxieties, that are these voices of my own self-absorbed ego, how do I know? Do I recognize this voice as my own ego, or do I recognize it as the voice of the higher guidance and wisdom? A voice that maybe asked me to think about a new way of doing things. A voice that asks me to stretch and grow and trust. like today's daily word said. Trust. This isn't always easy for us to listen and then to act on what we get. I heard a neat thing the other day. They said that in the fog, if a sailor's in a small boat, that he'll go in circles because if he can't tell where the harbor is, he'll go in circles and the waves make the buoys clang. And so he just has to follow the sound into the harbor. Isn't that neat? Yeah. That's really neat. What does that mean for us? The fact that by making these waves, it means that once we've spent time listening and we receive that guidance, we have to take action on that guidance. Take action on it. Some call this putting feet to our prayers. So the interesting thing is that I left my talk on my dining room table this morning. And so listening to how am I going to get my talk printed, because I have to know when I'm clicking the slides and all. And so Susan and I, we connected my phone to make it a hotspot, sent it to Susan's iPhone, and she's connected to the printer. So now we are all connected. Isn't that amazing how that works? It's just, you just never know. You have to take action on what is happening. Not to panic, just to sit and listen and stop and listen. And you know, there's a lot of changes going on here at Unity of Calgary. We don't know where we're going to be come June. And fear, like a dense fog, it affects our vision and our ability to see where are we supposed to go? What are we supposed to be doing? We can't hear the next step. And sometimes that voice is not really speaking. It's a feeling, it's an urge, it's an intuition, because God does not speak English. So just thought I'd let you know. There's a story that I heard a little while ago about a family that lived in Colorado. We'll call them Helen and Joe. I can't remember their names. Well, Helen was a therapist. She had a really good job in Colorado. She was very happy, loved the people she worked with, and was really doing well. Joe, her husband, also had a responsible position, but he was like, not so happy with the people that he worked with. Well, one day, and so the other bit of background is that Helen's parents lived in Florida, and she really thought it would be a good idea if the kids could experience their grandparents, so she wanted to move closer to them. Well, one day her mother called her and said, Helen, there's this great opening at an agency nearby here, and I think you'd be perfect for it. You have all the qualifications. So Helen got really excited. She sent her resume. They called her down for an interview, and it was in the same town as with her mother, where her mother lived. Well, she came back and she was sure she had the job. She'd been praying about it. She'd been we call this desire, that divine discontent. It's like, there's got to be something more. There's got to be something more. And so she came back and she started making plans. She started phoning moving companies, started getting boxes, started telling people they were moving. Guess what? Didn't get the job. Did not get the job. They phoned and told her they'd given it to somebody else. Well, she was a little bit upset by that. Just a little bit upset. She was so angry and she was so frustrated. How many times has that happened to us? That we think we know exactly what's going to happen, and it doesn't. You know that old saying, if you want to make God laugh, tell her your plans. Oh yeah. Now, that's not the end of the story. Joe's boss called him in and said, we're downsizing here in Colorado, so you have two choices. One, you can take a pension, early retirement payment if you want to stay in Colorado, or two, there is a job in a town in Florida, but it's a promotion. And if you want to move to Florida, then, well, guess where it was? In the mother's city. Yes, right in the town. Oh my goodness. How amazing is that? This is how things happen, just how they happen. So Helen was able to stay home for a couple of years, be a mom, because Joe was making enough money to support them. And it was just so wonderful. What happened was her prayer was answered, but it was answered so much better than she could ever have imagined. It was wonderful. So how many times have you wondered about which is the right direction to take? How many times have you gone your way and pushed through and used your willpower to say this is how it's going to be, and how many times has your way turned out to be a disaster? But mainly, sometimes it's only in the midst of a disaster, in the fogs of our lives, that we're able to stop and say, okay, I'm open. Show me the way to go. When you realize that things are not exactly working out the way you wanted them to. Sometimes we're so busy telling the universe there is a better way, we can't listen and hear about it. We need to get very still and accept our conditions and ourselves, and then we can hear that higher self calling to us, speaking to us. We're able to hear divine discontent saying there is more to this. There is more. But there's something else too. That no matter what you hear, unless you take action, it won't do us any good. So this is what we're learning in the new class that I'm teaching. It's all about taking all that we know, our thoughts and words and actions, to create prosperity in our lives. How do we do that? This is an amazing books, the 2 books that we're using that are available at the bookstore, my little plug for my class. But I just can't believe how much already I've learned just by having to teach the class. And Eric Butterworth is so clear and has such directions that all we need to do is follow the directions that is given to us. And we will have prosperity in every area of our lives, in our health, in our relationships, in our jobs, in our families, in our finances, in our spiritual growth. It's so amazing, so amazing. Because we know that the fog can be lifted. We are so blessed. Let's take this into meditation now.